Good morning to Julia. How are you?
Good morning. I'm brilliant. How about you?
Wonderful, thank you.
Well, we don't have Adrian in the studio today.
Oh, Adrian.
After that angle.
No, I'm
he
fixing.
put that
I'm going to
camera
fix
on
that. I'm
last
going
week,
to
abandon.
fix that. I'm going to
You're
fix
gonna
that.
fix it?
I'm going to. Adrian, walk with me. I'm going to help you fix it now.
So, hello, everybody. Well, last week's show, we got a lot of feedback on, which we really, really appreciated. But it is a new year, and we're going to talk about something. I'm going to face the elephant in the room. My New Year's resolution. Face those elephants in the room. Okay, now, what was yours?
Mine was always fitness and health. Always fitness and health and money management. They're almost
thing.
they're almost walking hand in hand.
They are.
Yeah.
You know, what that all belongs to is improving your work-life balance.
Correct.
Yeah. Oh my, that really should have been the top of my list. But anyway, that elephant in the room, you know, that big thing you don't want to talk about, that is my New Year's resolution. I remember reading to my kids when they were little a book called There's No Such Thing as a Dragon. Have you ever read that?
No, actually,
No,
you got me
it was
thinking.
Such a great book.
Oh.
This little kid, right? He wakes up this morning and there's this little bitty dragon sitting at the end of his bed. And he's really excited and he plays with it and so on. And he goes downstairs for breakfast and he says to his mom, there's a dragon. And I woke up and it was there in my room and she said, no, there's no such thing as a dragon. And it makes it bigger. And everyone around him tells him there's no such thing as a dragon. And it makes it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually it consumes the house. Of course, how do you explain that symbolically to a 3-year-old you're reading it to? That it's your problems.
Yes.
You know, your problems are there sitting on the bottom of your bed when you wake up in the morning. And if you don't get someone to help you thrash them out and acknowledge that this is a challenge that you need to actually deal with, your elephant in the room, maybe I should call it a dragon in the room, then what happens is that, you know, it just grows and grows and grows. Anyway, at Lockerbie, we've had a dragon in the room for a long time, and this is where we've been taking our hits. So I've decided to actually come online, say it today, exactly what's on my mind. I'm speaking my mind again for 2018. This is what we hear. If your kid is different, go to Lockerbie. Lockerbie, send all the kids who are different, who will learn differently. Well, hello. I'm thinking to myself, don't we all? Don't we all learn differently? I remember being 9 years old at primary school, and I had a wonderful teacher who was teaching geography called Jessie Johnson. And she was teaching us about the international date line, different places in the world, different times, you know, at the same time, there are different times. And I remember walking out of there thinking, how can that be? I was reading the words, I was looking at a drawing of map of the world, flat, 2-dimensional, with all these vertical lines chopping up the world, and I'm supposed to think, okay, 0 is the Greenwich Meridian, and I'm having these thoughts at 9 years old, by the way, and then you're telling me that Singapore is 7 hours like ahead. How can it be? How can it be? I mean, how can it even be dark? It didn't make sense to me, and I needed reflection time. So I remember walking to the Coke machine where Coke bottles were 10 cents, by the way.
That's a different time.
Isn't that something? And I remember thinking to myself, how could it be? How could it be? And all of a sudden I said, but hold on a minute. The world isn't flat. The world is round. Oh, and the world rotates. Oh my gosh, the world rotates and revolves. And it revolves around the sun. Oh, so where's light now is dark because it's not turned yet towards, oh, I get it. Now don't tell me that I was dumb. I just learned differently from the way she was actually teaching. But I got it. And I got it on my own. No child should actually feel dumb just because they learn differently. Some are active learners, some are reflective learners, some are global, some are sequential, some are intuitive, some are not intuitive. You have to tailor-make education, particularly now that everything's moving so fast, to the individual child. You have to tailor-make it for them. Because if you don't have discussion and collaboration and that kind of thing in the classroom, then no child's actually learning the way their brain thinks. So if you have a child who learns differently and you think it's a bad thing, we think it's a good thing, send them to Lockerbie. Okay? Dragon number 1. Ready for dragon number 2? Okay. If your child has issues, if they're just, you know, damaged and disabled by dyslexia or ADHD, or they write like cockroaches, or they're disabled in some way, you know, they're just not normal, you know, you got to just send them to Lockerbie. Yeah, we want them. And let me tell you why we want them. Because all great schools in this world right now are mainstream inclusive. That means whether your child, wherever your child is on the neurotypical scale, whether they're high functioning and gifted, whether they're gifted with learning issues, whether they are absolutely average and middle of the road, whether they find processing difficult and they're a little further down the scale, all great schools are mainstream inclusive. The needs of every child is met by very clever teaching, very good training, access to technology, highly differentiated classes, good lesson planning. All of that is done in excellent schools worldwide, mainstream inclusive. You know, kids have issues in classrooms because traditional education is failing them. It's failing them. We're no longer. Why does a classroom exist in Barbados where there are rows of desks? Why does that happen? Doesn't that send your flags up? Well, it sends my flags up because a child with an issue is not going to function in that classroom. And guess what? The statistics say that between 12 and 17% of every single classroom has a child who learns differently. So it's vital for students who become adults in future time to have meaningful learning now. So don't consider it a threat if your child's not normal, send them to Lockerbie. Consider it a promise that if your child is not learning as they should be and you send them to Lockerbie, you're going to get that figured out. So yeah, we want them. Dragon number 2, tick. Kids who are different. Well, I've already been through that one. Learning differently, different with personality. You know what? Who gives a child a prize for hard work? It's too subjective, right? That 90% isn't subjective. They got that 90%. But suppose that test wasn't valid. Suppose that test was actually testing birds to build nests. And suppose your child isn't a bird, your child's a fish. That test is not valid for your child. So your child can try as hard as they want to, as hard as they possibly can, with as much support from you. They can stay up late at night. They can do that homework for 4 hours. They can be as resilient as they possibly can be. You know, I've seen kids who have been put down and put down and put down by teachers and other kids in classes at other schools. You know, no, you're wrong. No, you're stupid. No, you don't get it. No, why are you sleeping? Well, I'm sleeping, teacher, because I had homework last night and I respected you enough to do it, and it took me 6 hours. And that homework, you decide it for the kid next to me who's going to do it in 60 minutes. So I'm different. Excuse me. And against all the odds, children deserve a chance to thrive. So if they're different, dragon number 3, you better send them to us. What about kids who aren't succeeding? The biggest issue that all schools have is the able underachiever. You know your child has potential. You know your child is bright. But your child's just not doing well. They're not flourishing. I want to ask you, what child's going to flourish when they're put in a classroom where they need to shut up, they need to listen, they're given a detention, they're given lines to write, they're bored to death, they're sleepy, they're thirsty, they're boiling hot. I mean, think about it. Think about it. How would you as an adult function in that kind of situation? So guess what? If that's your problem, dragon number 3, send them to Lockerbie. How about kids with no confidence? Do kids not have any confidence? Why? Because they're not set up for success. You would be amazed how much effort kids put in when they know how to start and when they get feedback, so that they don't do a whole thing and then be told, you're wrong, start again. They need to get that meaningful feedback, because that's how we really learn. Human beings are super adaptable. But you know what? Nothing is worse than putting in your best effort and at the very end of it, getting a grade D, or you just told, you didn't read the question correctly, so therefore that whole essay you just wrote, you're going to fail. Well, you know what? Check I've read the question correctly, because you know me well. You're a teacher. Next to my parents, you know me better than anybody else on the planet. You know me well. Give me a hand here. Make sure that I know the way that my little brain works, that I've understood what that question's actually asking. Kids need to be set up for success, or they're not going to be confident. They need to get positive feedback, constructive feedback. And sometimes constructive feedback is hard, but they need to get it. And that's going to help build their confidence. They need to get the opportunity to contribute, because you know what? No confidence can be built with a child who's not allowed to open their mouth and to have a discussion. And when they discuss, no confidence can be built if you discount what they say. So you have to create a teaching environment in which learning actually happens in a really positive way. Kids need to have their voice heard, because until all of these things happen, there's not going to be academic success. And academic success isn't going to happen until there's confidence. So confidence is sort of the indicator that your child is going to start academically succeeding. You might have a child who's doing very well with low confidence. You know what? They're very anxious that the day might come when they don't do well, or that they're actually going to be socially stigmatized by their peers because they're doing well, and that is going to rock their confidence. It's going to hit them hard. So a child needs to feel as though he or she brings value to a class and a group. The questions that he or she asks may be off target, but they're not going to be demeaned for them. That is going to be a gateway to a bigger discussion. And you know what? Kids with no confidence don't exist in a classroom without there being kindness. You have no idea how many kids have said to me, I don't worry about the students at school who are bullies. I worry about the teachers who are bullies. You'd be amazed how many classrooms don't have kindness in them. So if your child lacks confidence, it's not that they just don't speak up for themselves. There's a reason behind it. There's always a link between the child, the environment, the adults, and what's actually going on, the task, what's going on, what's being expected of that child. So there's another dragon. If your child has no confidence, send them to Lockerbie. You know what? Send them to Lockerbie, because that confidence is going to be one of the first things that actually grows. What about kids who bully? If your child is bullied, send them to Lockerbie. If your child is a bully, send them to Lockerbie. They'll fix it. Okay, let's talk about bullying for a minute. So that's low self-esteem. We all know that that drives A, bullying, and B, those who don't seem to have the wherewithal to defend themselves from bullying and maybe even keep it a secret. I'll never forget, a couple of years ago, a child transferred to Lockerbie because he was being bullied. And we took the child in. We promised the parents it was going to be a different environment. It was going to be different teachers. It was going to be a different level of kindness. It was going to be a lot of things. Yeah. 1 week later, the parent of the child who was doing the bullying also transferred his son. So we had two kids leave another school and come to us. One was being bullied and one was the bully. And both parents were very concerned. The parent of the bullied child was very concerned because the bullying was going to continue in their eyes. And the parent of the child who had got called to the headmaster's office again for being the bully, he was concerned because he didn't want his son to keep getting beaten up over his own activities, over his own choices. And I said, okay, this is a different school. It's a different way we do things. I can promise you're not to worry. Within 24 hours of the new term starting, those two kids were playing road tennis like best buddies. Supervision was heavy, but it's always heavy. So Lockerbie changes lives. That's what we always say. That's a dragon in the room. If you have a child who's not coping where they are, whether they're different or they're being bullied by student or teacher, because believe me, that happens, whether your child's failing, whether your child's an able underachiever not getting it, what about the ones who are anxious or depressed? Where are all the anxious and depressed children who are baby boomers? I don't see them. But children today are anxious and depressed. That is a huge, huge marker. Fair. They need support. They need safety. They need kindness. They need non-judgment. They need coping skills. They may even need professional help. They need good international practices. You need best practices. That's what our schools should all be about. So I haven't even touched on kids who are bored. Maybe I'll talk about that another day. But a lot of kids in our application form, I said 2 words to describe your school experience so far at your other school. Bored. Bored. Why are kids bored? And there's so much to do, so much to learn. Anyway, they're my dragons today, everybody. You know? 6 dragons, right? 6 dragons. They're not growing anymore. If your child's finding whatever it is difficult, you need to come and talk to Lockerbie, because things at Lockerbie aren't difficult. And we're mainstream inclusive. Good international schools always are. So thank you so much for listening, and manage those dragons, everyone, because they'll eventually blow your house down.